I've been warning recently that the West should be scared by the new alliance between Russia and China, that this is the new axis of evil, a new geopolitical bloc. It's certainly true that Russia heavily depends on China. As a former Ukrainian military commander, General Zaluzny, recently said, it's only thanks to China that Russia still has the ability to kill Ukrainians and support its own economy while circumventing the sanctions pressure. As you can see in this graph, China now buys half of Russia's oil exports. And in the next graph, you can see the big jump in bilateral trade since the invasion of Ukraine. Trade between the two countries has reached record level. Putin calls the relationship the best it's ever been. This is probably true, because without Chinese support, Russia would lack key access to certain machinery and parts that are essential for its war machine. And as we can see in the next graph, China has replaced Western Europe as a key market for its oil. And we can also see by looking at the graph of car imports that Chinese cars now dominate the Russian market. But so what? Russian oil was always going to find a buyer somewhere in the world, and Chinese cars are flooding world markets everywhere. What is more interesting to note about the trade statistics is that they show, as this graph does, that Russia has become dangerously dependent on China. A third of its trade is now with China. This could be very unhealthy and dangerous for several reasons. First, China pays with RMB, and so Russia can only use that to buy Chinese goods. So it is almost like a barter trade. And secondly, Russia sells China commodities, raw materials, oil, natural gas, coal, metals, timber, grain, fertilizers. Back in the 1950s, Russia was the industrial giant and China the junior partner supplying most agricultural goods. Now China has become the manufacturing center of the world. It runs a massive $1 trillion trade surplus, so it doesn't depend on the Russian market. But only around 3 or 4% of China's trade is conducted with Russia. China has much better technology than Russia now, which has really become a resource economy. Xi Jinping talks of a friendship with no limits, but this is not really true. The two leaders may be very close, sharing common beliefs, but the Chinese and Russian peoples are not close at all. Chinese investment in Russia is modest, and Russian investment in China is tiny. Few Chinese live in Russia, even fewer Russians live in China. Tourism between the two countries is insignificant compared to China's international trade relations with Japan, Southeast Asia, America, and Europe. As we can see on these maps, there are few direct transport links, and the construction of new pipelines, roads, and railways has been very slow. This relationship lacks the dense web of personal, financial, and commercial connections that you can see between new neighbors like the United States and Canada, or Germany and France, or even China and Hong Kong. This could deepen over time, I suppose, but I don't see it happening. This is a state-to-state relationship that is pretty transactional and unsentimental. There is no cultural affinity. Xi boasts about a relationship without limits, but China is not providing Russia with the kind of economic support that the United States and Europe have provided to Ukraine. There is no Chinese equivalent of a Western-style aid program, no vast flow of grants, no open-ended financial commitments. There's no kind of Chinese Marshall Plan to help Russia. And Beijing is not sending military equipment or troops, for fear of sanctions, of course, although it is supposedly arming Iran. Beijing and Moscow have found a way around the sanctions threat by using North Korea. Pyongyang is sending both troops and weapons, But I haven't seen anyone claim that these are very useful. It's mainly because drones are transforming the nature of the conflict very rapidly. So what North Korea offers is not going to be decisive. So what could happen next? Well, I think we can see efforts by President Trump to woo Putin away from the Chinese orbit, because he views China, not Russia, as his main adversary. This isn't working out very well, mainly because Putin is irrationally obsessed with ending the war with a total victory, and that is out of reach. China is far more pragmatic. It doesn't care about the war, as far as we can tell. But I don't think Trump would abandon Taiwan. Maybe he could do something about Iran, allow Iran to replace Russia as a key supplier. That's possible. We shall see. Trump loves doing deals, so perhaps he has something in mind. But we also know that Putin and Xi have both been in power now for a very long time, especially Putin. And when leaders change, policies can easily change too. If you enjoyed this analysis, please subscribe, like the video, and let me know in the comments.